Yeah. Turn the lights low. Brain to the cosmos, welcome to the Wish Show. Yeah, welcome to the Wish Show, welcome to the Wish Show.
Yes, sir.
Hold up. Did you seriously just tell me that the forbidden fruit was basically a psychedelic edible?
Not basically, my dude. Exactly. Adam and Eve didn't take a bite of an apple. They hit the first ever cosmic gummy in fruit form and unlocked the universe.
Right, because nothing says divine punishment like a bad trip in the garden.
Listen, man, the Bible said their eyes were opened. That's word for how people describe DMT trips. And you expect me not to connect those dots?
Okay, but why would God put psychedelic plants in paradise? That's like giving a toddler a chainsaw and saying, "Don't touch it, champ."
Exactly, dude. What God does that? A divine creator or an Anunnaki lab supervisor watching his experimental humans like, hey, don't eat from that consciousness-altering tree. We're not done formatting your brains yet.
So the whole Garden of Eden was an ancient alien research and development facility?
Bro, they had one rule. One rule! Don't eat the knowledge fruit. If that's not an NDA, I don't know what is.
And the serpent?
Whistleblower, my dude. Edward Snakeaden.
I hate you.
But you know I'm right.
God help me. All right, folks, welcome back to The Witch Show, where smart meets stupid and somehow makes sense. My name's Georgie.
Me too, dude.
Shut up, dude. And I'm thinking out loud so you don't have to.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is The Witch Show, from what I think seriously to you.
WITS, The Witch Show.
Cool story, bro.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me back on The Witch Show. Happy Saturday to you. If you drink energy drinks and you haven't checked out Dubby, make sure that you do use code The Witch Show and save yourself 30% off. You can do this at checkout anytime you want, as many times as you want. It's awesome, it helps out the show, and they've got so many delicious flavors. It's very nice for you. You're going to like very much, yes. With that being said, yo, Jarvis!
Dubby in my cup, no sugar, no crash. Clean energy focus, yeah, it hits fast. Use code The Witch Show, 30% off. Alright, back to the weird, let's go!
Wicked. Anyway, moving forward, I personally struggle with calling large parts of the Bible metaphorical. For example, when a priest tells you that eating the forbidden fruit was actually just a metaphor for fornicating, I'm just not with it. I also don't fully know what to believe when it comes to things like this, as there's so many holes in ancient religions like this. What can I say? I'm a skeptic. I'm a skeptic on everything. Do I think there's a creator? Absolutely. Something created everything. Even if you believe in nothing, you're saying that you were plucked from nothing, and then when you die, you go back to nothing? Yeah, I hate to break it to you, buddy, but it kind of sounds like you do believe in something, even if that something is nothing. I say that with quotations. Seriously, I'm quotating right now, and I am using both hands. Now stop laughing at my joke and let's move forward. The reason I personally struggle with calling large parts of the Bible metaphorical is simple. Every time something in it was dismissed as symbolic, history eventually showed it was physical. Cities like Jericho were real. People like Pontius Pilate were real. Entire civilizations like Hittitus were once called myths until we dug them up. Time and time again, archaeology hasn't embarrassed the Bible. It embarrassed the assumptions about it. Yeah, that's right. Score one for the religious people. So, when we reach the parts of the Bible that we can't test yet, like Eden and the Tree of Knowledge, or the fruit itself, I think it's far more reasonable to say that we've lost the evidence, not that the story was never meant to be literal in the first place. Because everything that we have found in the Bible that has been proven real is literal, not metaphorical. Let's start by correcting one of the biggest misconceptions in human history. The forbidden fruit was never, at any point in the original text, called an apple. The entire idea is the result of a sloppy medieval translation where the Latin word malus, meaning evil, was confused with malum, meaning apple. So for more than 1,000 years, artists and preachers kept painting apples because the words sounded similar. But that tells us nothing about what the fruit actually was. The original Hebrew word used in Genesis is peri, a word so broad that it could refer to literally any produce item. A berry, a fig, a nut, a seed pod, or even a plant-based substance that no longer exists today. In other words, the fruit wasn't identified because the story wasn't exactly about food. I think it was about the consequences of ingesting something that altered the mind. And here's where the story gets more interesting. Almost every time the Bible has been accused of exaggerating or using metaphor, archaeologists have stepped in and said, well, actually, it was real. The Hittites, once thought to be fictional, turned out to be a vast empire. The Pool of Siloam existed exactly where the text said it was, and the Tel Dan inscriptions confirm the House of David. Even the descriptions of ancient trade routes and water systems line up with geological surveys. Again and again, the Bible surrounding the world has proven literal. So why do people assume this one part is purely symbolic? If the cities were real, the kings are real, and the temples are real, and the wars are real, then why wouldn't the fruit be real too? The question isn't whether the fruit existed. The question is, what kind of fruit causes an immediate, irreversible neurological shift? Because the descriptions in Genesis is not the descriptions of someone biting into a snack. Adam and Eve don't just get smarter, they undergo a full psychological awakening. Their eyes were opened, not gradually, instantly. The gain of self-awareness, moral reasoning, shame, ego, and the ability to perceive themselves as separate from everything else around them. These are the exact neurological phenomena that occur during rapid changes in consciousness. And that kind of shift happens when you introduce certain chemicals to the brain. Chemicals that are found in specific plants and trees. Now, here's where the ancient world lines up perfectly with the story. In the region Eden's myth comes from, Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, two psychoactive plants grew naturally side by side. First, the acacia tree, which contains DMT, one of the most powerful vision-inducing compounds ever discovered. And second, the Syrian rue plant, loaded with MAO inhibitors like harmine and harmaline, compounds that allow DMT to become orally active. Alone, neither plant creates a life-changing experience, but consumed together, they create the exact biochemical reaction found in ayahuasca, the Amazonian vine of souls. And here's the crazy part. People who take ayahuasca describe the onset the same way Genesis does. I felt my eyes open. I saw myself. I understand things I never understood before. Everything became clear. These aren't metaphors. These are shared human neurological effects. Different cultures across different eras describing the same internal event. It's also worth pointing out that the ancient people didn't have the same fear of plants that we do today. They experimented with everything. They brewed things, smoked things, chewed things, fermented things. If there was a plant that offered knowledge, they would have found it. And even more compelling, certain species of acacia produced a reddish sap that early civilizations literally called the blood of the gods. It was used in rituals, sacrifices, and vision rites long before Genesis was written. Suddenly, the concept of forbidden, sacred, dangerous fruit at the center of a divine garden makes a lot more sense. The fruit didn't represent sin, it represented a biochemical shortcut to consciousness that humanity wasn't ready for. So when Adam and Eve eat this fruit, the story reads nothing like a moral fable and everything like a sudden neurological evolution. Shame appears because ego appears. Fear appears because self-preservation appears. Separation appears because the sense of unity dissolves. Their entire perception of reality shifts in one moment. This wasn't just eating something they weren't supposed to eat. This was human consciousness being unlocked early. Like a toddler accidentally figuring out the password to the universe. So, before humanity ever carved symbols into clay tablets and figured out how to push air through vocal cords to form words, there's a very real possibility that our earliest form of communication wasn't spoken at all. It was felt. It was shared. It was instinctive. When you look at the earliest mythologies on Earth, things from Sumerians to the early Vedic text, the indigenous oral traditions, they all describe the earliest beings as communicating not with voices, but through intention, through direct thought. Even in Genesis account, Adam and Eve don't hear God speak the way that we think of speaking. They perceive him, they walk with him, they understand him without a language barrier, which suggests something even closer to the broadcast of a thought rather than an audible sound. And if this sounds like a stretch, it's worth noting that the number one detail people report in modern alien encounters is telepathy. Not aliens speaking English, not aliens mumbling alien symbols, just quiet, direct, in-your-head communication. The exact same form described in humanity's oldest stories. Now imagine early humans before the forbidden fruit. No shame, no ego, no fear, no sense of separation. The existence in a state of pure unity, if you will, where the human mind isn't locked like a box, but shared like a field. In that type of consciousness, telepathy isn't just possible, it's the default. Telepathy only becomes complicated when you introduce ego, because ego creates boundaries. Me versus you, inside versus outside, private versus public. The moment Adam and Eve eat the fruit and their eyes are opened, everything changes. The first emotion they feel is shame, a uniquely ego-driven emotion that requires self-awareness. Suddenly, there's a me that needs to hide, and a me that feels exposed, and a me that no longer wants every thought broadcast to the universe. And the next thing that happens, they hide from God. That's not something beings in a telepathic state would ever do. Hiding only makes sense when the mind becomes separate. When thoughts are no longer shared, when fear enters the picture, and when consciousness transitions from unity to individuality. Neuroscience backs this up in a strange way. During certain psychedelic experiences, people described a telepathic-like communication, an overwhelming sense of unity, and the dissolving of the boundaries that separated one mind from another. But during ego formation, especially sudden overwhelming ego formation, the opposite happens. The brain creates a sharp divide between self and other. The fruit didn't just give Adam and Eve knowledge, it may have literally shifted the architecture of their entire consciousness. And that shift destroyed whatever telepathic operating system they originally ran on. They didn't fall from grace, they fell from connection. The garden wasn't paradise because of the scenery, it was paradise because the minds within it were linked, transparent, and unbroken by fear. And what's wild is that traces of this telepathic system still show up in modern life, almost like glitches in old software. Twins reporting shared emotions, mothers sensing danger before it happens, people knowing who's calling right before the phone rings. Entire groups of animals moving as one with, no vocal communication. Even paranormal encounters, and yes, alien encounters, continue to describe communication through thought. It's like humanity's original hardware still has dormant features we don't know how to access anymore. And maybe, just maybe, that loss didn't happen naturally. Maybe it happened the moment humans took in a substance that jump-started the ego too early. A neurological upgrade forced into place before the system was fully ready. If you strip Genesis of stained glass and Sunday school, what's left doesn't act like an all-knowing deity. It acts like a supervisor running an experiment. Long before Genesis, the Sumerians wrote about the Anunnaki, advanced beings who came to Earth, engineered humans, and ruled through hierarchy. They weren't gods because they were supernatural, but because their knowledge, their lifespan, and technology made them seem divine. Read Genesis through that lens, and it stops feeling like a myth and starts feeling like an ancient encounter. Let us make man in our image. That line alone implies a group, not a singular god. Elohim is plural. This mirrors the Anunnaki pantheon, especially Enlil, their strict leader who feared humans becoming too independent. In Sumerian texts, Enlil limits human knowledge, enforces obedience, and even tries to wipe out humanity when they grow too aware. That's not a loving god. It's a controller guarding authority. Genesis reflects the same behavior. God walks physically in the garden. He forbids the tree of knowledge because humans would become like one of us. When they eat it, he doesn't destroy them. He removes them from the controlled environment. Eden wasn't punishment, it was a containment. Even the serpent isn't Satan. It's never called evil, just crafty. In Sumerian lore, Enki, Enlil's brother, was the scientist who wanted humans enlightened, even if it broke protocol. The serpent fits the role, the one who wanted humanity awake, not obedient. Seen this way, Eden isn't a moral test, it's a project breach. Knowledge wasn't gained too soon, control was lost, and humanity wasn't fallen. We were upgraded. If early humans operated with a shared telepathic consciousness, then eating the fruit marks the moment the system collapsed. And that raises a key question. Why would a creator allow humanity to shift from unified, transparent, and obedient to self-aware, fearful, and capable of deception? Through the Anunnaki lens, the answer is simple. A telepathic species can't be controlled. Open minds means no secret, no hierarchy, no manipulation. A leader like Enlil, who wanted humans engineered for labor and obedience, couldn't rule beings who sensed intentions instantly and saw through authority. Before the fruit, humanity may have functioned as a collective. Orders felt internal, shared, and unquestioned. Telepathy isn't just communication, it's alignment and compliance without force. But once the fruit is eaten, everything fractures. Shame, fear, ego, and privacy appear. Individuals' identity replaced collective consciousness. Human beings questioning, hiding, and wondering why they exist. In neurological terms, the fruit could represent a sudden activation of ego consciousness, possibly triggered by a psychedelic-like event that severed a shared mental network. The result wasn't just knowledge, it was isolation. Each human became mentally alone for the first time. And from a control standpoint, that change was ideal. Individual minds are easier to manage. Fear replaces understanding, language replaces direct thought, hierarchy becomes possible. The old operating system is forgotten. Yet traces remain. Shared dreams, maternal intuition, twins sensing each other, the feeling of being watched. These may be the remnants of a lost unified consciousness. Seen this way, Eden isn't a story of sin. It's a record of a deliberate downgrade, because humanity was too powerful when we were connected. If the forbidden fruit shattered humanity's original unified consciousness, psychedelics may be the only thing that still lets us glimpse it. A temporary reboot of the system we were never meant to access again. Across every ancient culture, psychoactive plants weren't used for recreation, but as a sacred tool for healing, communication, and contact with something beyond ordinary reality. And no matter the culture, ayahuasca, mushrooms, peyote, iboga, the experiences were strikingly similar. Ego dissolution, unity with all life, and encounters with non-physical intelligences. That state mirrors life before the fall. No ego, no shame, no separation, walking with the gods through shared awareness, not spoken words. Psychedelics appear to quiet the brain's ego center, allowing the mind to experience interconnected consciousness again. When people say a deep trip feels like coming home, it may be because they're touching that lost Edenic state. Brain scans support this idea. Psychedelics deactivate the default mode network, the systems that maintains personal identity, causing the brain to operate in open, interconnected patterns. While telepathy isn't scientifically proven yet, we are getting pretty close, or at least Kai Dickens is with telepathy tapes. If you haven't checked that out, it's definitely worth a listen. But people across cultures report shared thoughts, emotional syncing, and wordless communications during ceremonies, suggesting a dormant channel briefly reopening. Ancient cultures called these plants gifts from the gods, tools for forbidden knowledge and reconnection. If the Anunnaki guided early humanity, these plants may have been the sacred technologies, biological gateways into higher awareness. The fruit may not have been forbidden because knowledge was evil, but because humanity wasn't ready. Seen this way, psychedelics aren't modern vices, they're ancient keys that still fit a lock we once had, keys that remind us what consciousness felt like before the fall. So, was Eden a test or a controlled experiment? When you piece it together, the forbidden knowledge, giving fruit, the sudden surge of self-awareness, the loss of humanity's unified consciousness, and direct communications with the creators, Eden stops looking like a moral fable and starts resembling a controlled experiment. It wasn't a leisure paradise, it was a monitored environment designed to keep early humans stable, obedient, and predictable, free from ego, fear, and competition, until they accessed something that wasn't part of the plan. If the fruit acted as a consciousness accelerator, then Adam and Eve skipped developmental stages, like giving unfinished AI full autonomy. Their minds evolved faster than the system could handle. Ego appeared, shame and fear followed, individual identity replaced harmony. The experiment destabilized. This fits the Anunnaki framework, and Lil wanted humanity structured and manageable. Enki, the scientist, repeatedly pushed to elevate humans beyond their limits. Eden may have been a testing chamber, and the serpent a symbol of the faction that wanted humanity awakened. The sin wasn't disobedience, it was an unauthorized evolutionary leap. And God's response makes sense. No destruction, no reset, just removal. Once the subject became self-aware and uncontrollable, they couldn't remain in the system. The expulsion wasn't wrath, it was protocol. Eden closed because humanity outgrew it. So maybe we didn't fall, we advanced too early. Eden wasn't lost in punishment, it was retired after serving its purpose. The real world didn't begin because we were banished, it began because we became more than we were designed to be. Which leaves the real question. Did humanity ruin the experiment, or did we complete it? So here we are, standing at the edge of the story we thought we knew. A story billions of people grew up believing, repeating, defending, a story that has shaped cultures, religions, governments, and entire civilizations. The story of a garden, a fruit, a serpent, and a fall. But what if the fall wasn't a fall at all? What if the greatest mistake humanity ever made was actually the moment we became human in the first place? Think about it. Everything that defines us, curiosity, rebellion, creativity, awareness, choices, all of it emerges at one moment. A moment triggered not by sin, but by knowledge. A moment that shattered the walls of a controlled world and thrust us into the universe full of danger, wonder, possibility, and growth. We weren't pushed out of paradise because we were broken. We were pushed out because paradise couldn't contain what we were becoming. Humanity has been trying to understand its purpose ever since. Why we're here, who made us, what we're evolving toward. And maybe we've been looking in the wrong direction. Maybe the answers aren't in the sky or in ancient temples or buried in a holy text. Maybe they're inside us, locked behind the very consciousness that awakened in Eden. Maybe we didn't lose the telepathy. Maybe we outgrew it. Maybe psychedelics didn't alter the mind. Maybe they help us remember what the mind used to be capable of. And if the Anunnaki or whoever walked this earth before us really did try to limit our evolution, to pause us, to control us, then the greatest act of a rebellion in human history happened with a single bite. A moment where two humans stepped outside the boundaries of their creators and chose growth over obedience. They chose the unknown over familiar. They chose becoming something more over remaining something less. Maybe that was humanity's first mistake, or maybe that was humanity's first miracle. And if that's true, then we're not living in a world we were punished with. We're living in a world we earned. A world we created, a world we're still evolving through. The garden wasn't the beginning, it was the door. And the real story, our story, didn't begin until the moment we walked out. Now the only question that remains is this. If humanity really did unlock consciousness too early, what are we about to unlock next? Run straight to my comment section and tell me what you think, because I really, truly do want to know what you think. So, until next time, this is The Wit Show, where smart meets stupid and somehow makes sense. My name's Georgie, and I'll be here again next Saturday thinking out loud so you don't have to.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is The Witch Show, from what I think seriously to you.
WITS, The Wit Show.
Cool story, bro.
Well, that was uplifting in a we escaped an alien petting zoo kind of way.
Bro, we didn't escape, we ascended. We're like cosmic jailbreakers with anxiety.
Yeah, divine enlightenment with panic attacks, taxes, and stubbed toes.
Listen, dude, if eating the forbidden fruit gave us ego, free will, and consciousness, then the least we could do is make a podcast about it.
Right. I'm sure Enlil is listening right now like, oh, great. They've discovered microphones.
Let him listen, dude. At this point, we're too evolved for that, dude. We got Spotify, we got TikTok, we got W energy drink codes, bro. Seriously, dude, use code TheWitchShow at checkout for 30% off. What's he got, dude? A freaking garden with one rule? Ha! Amateur hour.
Okay. Before you start a multi-dimensional war with our ancient landlords, let's roll out of here.
Fine, dude. But if the Anunnaki show up at your house tonight, I'm pretending I don't know you.
You do that every time I text you after 9 p.m.
Exactly, dude. Practice makes perfect.
All right, folks. Thanks for diving into the deep end with us today. Strap in, stay curious, and remember, whatever you do, don't eat anything glowing in the garden.
Dude, let me do it.
No, dude, get out of here.
You know what? Fine. I don't even care, dude. Eat the freaking glowing stuff in the garden. I'm not your dad. Freaking matter of fact, dude, I'm going to go find some forbidden fruit and eat it right now.
Oh my god, dude. You know what? Jarvis, roll the music before he gets us smited or something.
Bro, don't touch that fruit. Too late. It smelled like forbidden knowledge, dude. Now we have consciousness. Is that bad? Roll the song before God, not his says. conversations floating out in the sun. Then a serpent whispered, take a bite, wake up. And suddenly the whole damn world got shook. Ego kicked in, paradise shut down. We saw through the rules and the lies in the crown. If Eden was a project, we broke phase one. Two human prototypes who bit the sun. So we buy the sun, yeah, we jumped the gun. But the spark in our skulls couldn't be undone. They wanted us simple, but look what we've become. Humanity was born when we bite the sun. Humanity was born, we bite the sun. Psychedelic visions had us seeing the code. Anunnaki overseers try and keep in control, but you can't cage minds that just learn to run. The fall wasn't failure, man, the fall was fun. They locked the garden, but we kept the key. Found it in the plants that said